Three, two, one. Well, hello and welcome to the 21st episode of the Lives Podcast, coming to you through your audio device. I am your host, Quest, and I am joined by my co-host, former leader of the Combo Breaker Retro Room and Civil War events, Renegade. Our guest today is a double Evo champion, the winner of the Alpha 3 B4 tournament, and a man many consider to be the greatest fireball thrower in the history of Street Fighter. Without further ado, John Choi. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for agreeing to join us for an interview.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
My first question goes right back to the start. I saw an interview where you said your first tournament was at a Pizza Hut. What are your memories of that tournament?
Yeah, indeed. It was the very first tournament. I didn't even know about it. In fact, I was playing Street Fighter for a bit, and amongst my friends, I was the best out of our group. And my friend just happened to hear about this random tournament at a Pizza Hut in San Jose. And so he signed me up, and then we made our way out there. And that's the very first time that I met my good friend Jason Cole. He was my first match in the tournament. And then after that, we started keeping in touch and, having many, many battles throughout the years. And I remember that tournament because, it's the old Street Fighter 2 cabinet, and obviously there's no versus mode or event mode. So after every match, the owner would shut off the machine and then power it back on. And then that's how we kind of reset it. And then I also realized later that's how he was also making a lot of quarters from all the players, right? Every match, when it ended, he would reset it. So both of the players had to pay. Even if you won, you still had to pay. And then I think it was like $5 to join. It wasn't very much. And then the winner didn't get any money. They got a large pizza from there. And then I think second place got like a medium or something like that. Yeah, so it was pretty janky. But it was my first experience. And so from there I went to many other tournaments and bowling alleys, lots of arcades, and obviously things culminated to Evo. And now with the shutdown, I think there's a lot of online events, right? So yeah, I've been doing this for a long time.
Yes, it's true. It sounds like the amount of money you spent, like just playing in the tournament, was enough to buy the pizza anyway.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, the owner was really, really smart, right? Because if you just had even like 20 people just pumping quarters in, that more than paid for the event. So yeah, he was a smart guy.
Yep. Do you remember how you went in the tournament?
Oh, I did not place at all. I went there and maybe I got right in the middle or something. So it was a very good eye-opening experience because up to that point, I was the best amongst my group of friends, but I was a kid. I think I was like 14 years old or whatever. So my territory was anywhere that I could ride my bike to. So it was like the local 7-Elevens, Pizza Huts and stuff like that. And so I did not even realize like there's so many good players in lots of other areas. So I think a year or two after that is when I finally had access to a car, and then I was able to make my way to the infamous Sunnyvale Golfland and other locations where there were good players. And then it was, I guess, just like anything else. You are the best in your kind of territory, and then you venture out, and then you face new challenges, you get better, and then you just keep growing. So I quickly started going as everywhere I could that I could get to, and then try to play as many people as possible.
I'm just imagining the luck of just going to some random Pizza Hut tournament, and your first round match at this random pizza parlor tournament is Jason fucking Cole. Like, not even that, just the concept of a first round match between John Choi and Jason Cole. Everybody would be like running up to the TO if that happened these days and be like, hey, what's up with this? Be like, we need to get a float here.
We were both scrubs. We didn't really know what we're doing. And so it was a good eye-opening experience.
Yeah, you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, true. I'm in talks with Jason Cole, so it'll be interesting to get his side of it once I'm having on the podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah. At Battle by the Bay 4, you won the Alpha 3 tournament with Sakura, defeating Alex Valle, but you lost to him in Alpha 2 at the same event. how confident were you going into those tournaments? And did you feel that you were stronger at A3 at the time?
So Alpha 2, without a doubt, Alex was the king. He won almost every event that he entered. I only beat him in a few of the tournaments. Most of them he took. So he was undisputed king of Alpha 2. Alpha 3, at the start of the Alpha 3 kind of, I guess, legacy, he was definitely the tops. So when Alpha 3 first came out, that's when I started my college years. And so I was away up in UC Davis, and I didn't have access to Sunnyvale Golfland like I did. So for the first year or so, my Street Fighter just kind of tanked, simply because I just couldn't practice and I didn't have the competition. And then towards the end of that, when I returned back to the Bay Area, I was able to have access to Sunnyvale Golfland again. And then so that's when I kind of started picking things back up. And I think I started edging out Alex towards the end of the Alpha 3 career. So going into B4, I think I was pretty confident. I think people expected Alex to win Alpha 2 and then me to win Alpha 3, and that's exactly what happened.
Well, the character selection didn't hurt you either.
Yeah.
Did you feel like, let's say Valle didn't enter, would you still say you're stronger in Alpha 3 than 2? Like in terms of
no, actually. So recently I started trying both of the games on Fightcade, and there's a lot of good players on all of the games. So I think games like Alpha 2 and Alpha 3, obviously, me and Alex and other people, we played it during its heyday, and then after the new versions come out, we would migrate to that. So I honestly didn't touch Alpha 2 for, I don't know, I guess pretty much like in about 20 years. And then I literally just started playing about a month ago on Fightcade, and I realized that there's a lot of new techniques, and people have just kind of optimized the game over the years. So there's a lot of good people on and stuff that I haven't even realized. And same thing with Alpha 3, right? I stopped playing that a long time ago, and people are still specialists at it, and they're still uncovering new stuff. So at this moment, I don't know which I'm more confident. I would say, I guess I'm more confident in Alpha 2 simply because Alpha 3 has a lot of advanced tricks and tactics using customs. Alpha 2 is a little bit simpler in terms of that. So I think at this moment, I think I'm probably a little bit stronger in Alpha 2 compared to Alpha 3.
And I've always said that that exact point is why Alpha 2 has been more popular as a retro pick in tournaments ever since, because it is a little bit easier to pick up and play at a more optimal level than Alpha 3, because of Alpha 3, I mean, you have the customs, the 3 different types of customs, the infinites, and all of that extra complication in there. It's way deep. It's like I still don't even know what like the red major counter does. Like I don't know what that is. But like, and the big tournaments tanked for it about like, I think it was like the last big tournament I was ever a part of was ECC 6, which was like 2001, which was like a 98 person tournament. And after that, it just went whoo. And then the only ones that have been played as far as the retro scene, Alpha 2 has been much more popular. Just because it's been able to break down and stuff.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, like you said, Alpha 2 is a little easier to pick up. For you to be at a competitive level in Alpha 3, you have to go into training mode and practice customs over and over and over again. And so yeah, even when I got on Fightcade, like before I even attempted to play Alpha 3, I was like, I can't do any of these customs because this is 20 years ago. But then Alpha 2, literally on the second game, I remembered exactly how to do the custom because it's a lot simpler. So yeah, definitely it has it appeals to more of a broad audience, I think.
In North America, Alpha 2 is more popular, but in some places, like in Europe, Alpha 3 is actually more popular. So yeah, it depends where you are. But I understand where you guys are coming from. North America, definitely, Alpha 2 has been the more popular one. These, in the last 10 or whatever years.
Yeah, I would say that the level of play in Alpha 3 never, in America, never got to like what Japan was doing. Like we pretty much stopped, and our tier list was pretty much like V Akuma, V Sakura, and then V Zangief. we never really had like the V Sodom, V Karen, all the like infinites all over the place. We didn't get to that level before the game pretty much dropped off and was replaced by CVS2 and Third Strike.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think when we went to Japan for the U.S. versus Japan thing, obviously that was pretty much at the height. And shortly after that, we migrated off that game, and Japan was still progressing. So yeah, there were definitely a lot, I guess, behind in terms of all the tactics around that game.
You've named Alex Valle as your rival over the years. Was there a game in particular you felt you had the best matches against him in?
Wow. That's really hard to say because pretty much he's been my buddy and rival through basically almost every iteration of Street Fighter up until maybe just in the recent years. So I think I would say the fondest memories are probably on Alpha 2 days, simply because, that's kind of like the start of our friendship and rivalry. And we're also very young, right? So we would put in lots and lots of hours. It's something that's much harder to do now. So yeah, I would say Alpha 2 days was definitely the most memorable in terms of our rivalry.
I have a question. It's pretty good. I just kind of, what do you think is harder to do, win a major or run a major? Because you've done both.
I guess, yeah. I guess I'm biased here. I would say running a major is very, very difficult. I would say probably because I guess training for a major. I obviously you go practice as much as you can with friends, but it's still just practicing with people, right? I didn't feel as under pressure. And when you get to a major, obviously during the tournament itself, you're under some pressure, but that ends quickly. And then it's just you, right? You're not responsible for other people, but a major, it takes months and months and months of preparation, and you're responsible for the enjoyment of everybody that shows up, all of your staff, the hotel people, all of the contracts and vendors. So I would say, yeah, although I'm a bit biased, I would say running a major is a lot more stressful.
I 100% agree on that one. I mean, although I've never won a major, I've never been as nervous as I was when, like, you basically got, thousands of dollars of your own money invested in an event, and like if anything goes wrong, you're staying in major financial ruin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it must be. Like, I've had some experience running online tournaments, and I feel like that itself is already like a lot of work. I couldn't imagine what you guys go through actually running an in-person one where you have to handle all the contracts and all that.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know how it is over in Australia or something, but here in Northern California, we're really,
Right.
really, really difficult to even get a location for a tournament. I have to book it 2 to 3 years in advance with the deposit. So basically, you tie up thousands of dollars, and then you hope
Whoa.
that you recoup it 2 to 3 years later, right?
2 to 3 years in
And so
advance. That
yeah,
that is crazy.
yeah. So for example, this NCR, as soon as we had NCR 2 years ago, I had to book the same venue for the next 2 years out, or else I would lose a spot. So this year, due to COVID, I had to cancel. So I lost the deposit. Next year was already booked. I just officially put in the notice to cancel because obviously there's going to be no tours or events next year. So I'm losing the deposit. They asked me if I wanted to rebook it for the year after. Right now I put it on hold. So yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? So you have to know 2 to 3 years in advance, to book something. So yeah, it's challenging, at least around here in terms of venue, aspect.
Yeah, I mean, people ask me like, they're like, "Hey, Robin, Renegade, like, why'd you get out of the game? Why are you not doing Civil War anymore?" And like, it's that. I was busting up at that point. Like the last Civil War was about like about 500 people or something like that, and then I was able to like kind of scrape together pretty low cost venues and stuff. But we were growing to the point that I wasn't able to skip by on a shoestring budget anymore, and I was like, I don't think I can take this. My girlfriend, now wife at the time, she's gonna break up with me if I do this again.
Yeah.
And the Pro Tour was starting right around that time, and it like you either had to get on it or basically you didn't have a big Street Fighter tournament, and there's just so much pressure. And I've always, kind of, tipped my hat to you being a competitor that's made that transition to being able to throw major events. That's really hard.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean it's a lot of work, and but the scene's evolved and it's a lot of help now. I remember when we first started NCR, there's no Smash GG, right? There's no online bracket system, so all of that was manual, and that was really painful. But yeah, obviously we got a lot more tools now to make it a little bit easier on the TOs.
Yep. Japanese players are known for being quite strong at Alpha 3. When you first played them, what was that experience like?
Yeah, I mean, I think when Daigo first came to the States, he demonstrated just how, advanced they were in the game. We didn't even know about customs in the US, right? They had customs down, way advanced. And then, about a year later, when we were able to visit Japan, that's when they had all the, infinites and everything. So yeah, they've always been, I think, far ahead of US in terms of the game, and I never saw that ever change. So a lot of that probably has to do with the healthy arcade scene. I always thought US has definitely good players, but they're in pockets spread throughout the US, right? And a lot of people from other countries don't realize how big the US is, right? For me to just drive to the Southern California is like a 6-7 hour drive just in one state, and so for people to get together, it's only a couple of times a year. Whereas Japan, you can walk into pretty much any arcade and there's like 30 Daigos in there that you could get competition, anytime you want. So yeah, it's a very different kind of scene.
Yeah. I always kind of say the biggest difference between Japan and America is like in America, like what we would determine a scrub is somebody who barely can play the game. And in Japan, a scrub would be a competent tournament player over here. You could do all the combos and stuff like that. Has all the mechanics down, can do it, but just can't piece it together to beat the elite level players. And that's like basically the lowest tier of player that you'll see in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agreed.
Well, you had some losses in tournaments against them in Evo 2004, 2007, some previous stuff as well. But you won at Evo 2008. When you're going into that tournament, did it weigh on your mind that you're likely to meet some Japanese opponents going into it, or were they just like another opponent that you might verse?
I think around those Evos, yeah, like it was a given that you're going to run into some Japanese players. In fact, I think every year the number of players coming just went up and up and up, right? I think B5 was the very first time that Japanese players came to the States, and I think there was about 6 or 7 of them. I remember because I picked them up from the airport, and then after that, every year just number goes up. So yeah, by that time it's it's a given that you're gonna fight them. Yeah, I didn't even think that was not gonna happen. So you have to always factor that in.
Yep. I used to hear a rumor about you that you didn't like to play online because it was too different to playing in real life. Is there any truth to this?
Yes, absolutely true. I guess I'm pretty sensitive when it comes to change the difference in like speed and timing. I know when I tried to first play CVS from like arcade and transition to like Dreamcast, it was a hard transition. And then when Evo went from Dreamcast to PlayStation, that was a hard transition for me. And so yeah, I just was never really fond of online. So I never really played online Street Fighter. I think the only online Street Fighter I tried for a little bit was HDR. I played that for a little bit online, and then I tried to play Street Fighter 4 and 5 when it first came out, but it just didn't work out. So yeah, historically, I was never an online player. I think recently due to COVID, there's absolutely no other choice. So I finally gave in and I subscribed to PSN to play 30th, and then I recently installed Fightcade and been playing it. But yeah, historically, I always prefer offline.
Yeah, well, me too. For me, it's always been like I agree. It's like it's hard to get that competitive like fire in your gut, like that you want to beat somebody if they're but like completely anonymous behind a computer screen. Like it's like I can't get jazzed and play my best against fighting the computer. Like and again, I need to like see them or at least know that they're on the other side of the versus cabinet.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's that factor, and then I also understand that I was one of the fortunate people that actually lived in one of the hot spots of Street Fighter in the country. So if back in the days when I wanted to play, I could just go to a lot of local locations and get good competition. I realized that's not an option for a lot of the players in the U.S. So it's either online or they only have one person in the town that plays Street Fighter, right? So obviously I fully understand why they would want to go online, and maybe I would have done the same, right? I mean, COVID has, limited all options, so I've turned to online. So it might have been a different story if that was my only option back in the days.
That reminds me of a bit of a story. Is that I used to go to Game Time Arcade in Alexandria, Virginia, and that was like basically my home arcade for a long time. And there's a big. This might have been a little bit after Marvel 2 dropped, and there was a big kerfuffle because Arturo Sanchez Saban would come down pretty much at every monthly and just mop us up in like every game. And then there was a movement started to like ban New York players because like they had access to all the good competition, so they were just like too good and you couldn't beat them. And this was all over Shoryuken forums back then, and but like people were mostly laughed it off because I mean it's a complete joke, right? And eventually we did start beating them, but it took a long time, and the difference in competition levels is crazy.
Yeah, and that's probably a similar situation for a lot of the spots in the US, right? There's always, hot spots where people are like really, strong in some games, and, they kind of get freaked out when you first see them. I think when I first started traveling to like tournaments in Chicago and other states with Alex and stuff, you could easily kind of see the differences in level. And I remember a lot of players just being surprised. They're like, "Wow, like I didn't even know you could do half of this stuff." So I think that's probably how we feel about the Japanese players when they come over here. It's like, wow, what the heck is this? So.
Well, you defeated Daigo at Evo 2014. Was that the first like tournament you beat him in? And what did it mean to you to get a win there?
Let's see. I think that is the only tournament, and I'm trying to remember how many times I played him in tournament. Actually, I haven't played him that much. I've only played him maybe like 3 or 4 times total in my life. In tournament for some reason, I always just lose to like Tokido or all these other Japanese players for some reason. Like me and Daigo usually don't face off. So, but yeah, like I think that is the first time I faced him and beat him.
I was trying to think you ran into him in 2008 in ST or CVS2, but I cannot remember for the life of me.
I have never played him in CVS in a tournament ever. And then in 2008, was he there? I don't even remember if he was there or not, but I don't remember playing him in ST either. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. My memory is, I mean, it is 12 years ago.
Yeah, I do know for sure I never played him in CVS because we played a very similar team, so I always wanted to see how that would turn out, and it just never came up.
You see, speaking of, and I know this is the Alpha podcast or whatever, but you play almost this exact same team as the Japanese player Nakanishi. How would you feel you would stack up against Nakanishi today?
Oh, I have no idea, but he will probably mock me. Yeah, CVS is something that I haven't touched since 2008. So I recently installed that Nullbear, hoping that it was kind of like Fightcade, but I guess Nullbear doesn't have rollback. So I tried with a few people, and the input delay is pretty noticeable. So I haven't fired it up. So they said they're working on it. So hopefully it gets improved, and then I'll be able to pick it up again. But yeah, right now I'm not in touch with CVS.
Cross your fingers. So back to Alpha. I've seen that Boss has actually come over and played Alpha 2 a bunch. at different U.S. tournaments and whatnot. And have you seen any of his tier lists on the game?
I have not, and I knew Boss was always an Alpha 2 player, but over the years, whenever I would meet up with him, the only thing we ever played was Alpha 3, and
Uh,
then a spew of other games, and then for the very first time, I think Evo a couple of years ago when I had that exhibition with Valle, literally for the first time, like I was in one of the hotel rooms, we booted up the game, and I said, okay, let's play Alpha 2, Alpha 3, and ST just because I have to practice in this. So that was the very first time I played Boss, and he was really, really, really good with Akuma. He
yeah.
knew
So
all the customs, and yeah, like just melt your life away. So yeah, like I was like, wow, I didn't even know you were so good in this as well.
I'm trying to think of what his tier list was. I'm trying to think it from memory, but I think it was like S plus was like Rose, and then like S was like Rolento and Akuma, and then like after that was like Sakura and Ken, and he had like Chun in B tier, which was like crazy to me. But I think like he was kind of up like talking about like mix up potential and come back and just being able to win the match like really quickly, and that's the characters he prefers.
Okay. Yeah, I think I mean that tier isn't list isn't too different from at least what we thought back in the days. We
Mhm.
thought the best characters were Chun-Li, Ken, Ryu, and Rose, and then we thought second tier was like Sakura, Rolento, and then actually the second tier was pretty long. It was like Zangief, Charlie, Sakura. It was pretty long. So it doesn't seem too off from what we thought.
Yeah, I was always just like how high he had Rolento and Akuma, and how relatively low he had Chun Li on it. It was kind of very interesting.
I
Um,
see.
yeah,
Well,
like
it's funny because he has Rose, Rolento, and Akuma, right? All three of them, they do customs that basically do 90 to 100%. So
yeah.
he might be a little bit biased there.
We have some questions from our listeners.
Okay.
Our first question is from 10 times human strength. What was the Alpha 1 scene like? And I've always been curious to hear why it got dismissed so quickly.
Um, Alpha 1 came out at a time, at least around here, when arcades were flooded with fighting games. So I remember when Alpha 1 first came out, lots of people were playing Mortal Kombat 3, Killer Instinct. I think Tekken and Virtua Fighter were also starting out. So, Alpha 1, I didn't think anything was wrong at the time, but it was just flooded with the scene. So people were just playing all kinds of other fighters. So I tried to play a bit, but there just wasn't very much competition. So I quickly started playing Killer Instinct and Mortal Kombat and other stuff to find competition. So there wasn't really a big tournament scene for Alpha One, at least in California, and then I think even in SoCal, it only lasted for a short time. So yeah, I think it just came out at an odd time when the scene was kind of flooded, and there were just too many options for people to move
Yep.
towards.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
fair enough.
Darkstalkers and X-Men Children of the Atom also were out around that time too.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I remember those two. Yeah, it was just there's so many options, right? So you didn't have to stick to just Street Fighter anymore.
Carlos Man 668. My question would have to be, how do you feel about the current state of the FGC, and what would you do to improve it?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Is this related to COVID or just
Yeah,
all the state of everything kind of blowing up?
yeah. Well, it'd be good if you could cure COVID, but we'll say COVID aside.
I guess there's been a lot of kind of breaking news, I guess, within the scene in the last year or so, which is kind of reflective of our world kind of situation, right? I know a lot of things have been uncovered. It seems like the scene is kind of going through a reset, right? This is a grassroots scene, right? That's been grown, and there hasn't been a lot of kind of rigor or discipline, I would say, right? So the world is changing, and not just the FGC, right? We're being more cognizant and more sensitive to a lot of different situations. So while it is painful. I think maybe this blow up is ultimately better for the scene in the long run. We have very similar pains when arcades were dying and we had to go to console. And when Evo made that announcement, people were literally like about to riot that no way, you have to keep the arcade machines. We're never gonna come. And it was a painful transition, but obviously it was the right move. And years later, it was the right move. So I think this is similar, right? I think we need to put in some fair rules so that we could keep this, actually professional and, have it grow for years to come.
Okay. Our next question is from Raging Bull. What was your favorite Alpha 3 tournament that you've participated in and why?
The very favorite Alpha 3 tournament. I guess, the first U.S. versus Japan event when we had to play against those Japanese players. It was a short kind of exhibition, but it just showcased what you could do in the game, right? I think there was like Boss was in there with his Akuma showing off crazy customs. There was that V Karen player. There was a Dalsim that it was just a Dalsim. It wasn't even V Dalsim, and the Rolando. So I think just that was very. When Daigo first came, it was an eye-opening moment because we realized what you could do in the game. And then when we went to Japan and faced them officially, that was another eye-opening moment that, wow, like this game has just lots and lots of crazy stuff. So I remember, just being like, really like, with my eyes open looking at all the new tactics and seeing, wow, like this has a lot of potential. So I remember that the most.
Yep.
Man, that 5v5 is so like it was so critical in American fighting game history just because so much got brought and was displayed by that. You're talking about like all those customs and stuff like that. I think that's the first time we saw like Urian unblockables. Like that was Tokido, of course. And I think there was another thing that was unveiled in one of those as well. And it finally cemented, hey, you Americans are pretty good at Marvel.
Yeah, I think that was a scene where I think Alpha 3 and ST obviously they had the edge, but we were kind of competitive. But then Third Strike, they just like totally blew us out of the water. Like we didn't know anything compared to them. And then Marvel was the reverse. It's like wow, like we actually could beat the Japanese in something. Can you believe it? And so yeah, it was good to kind of set that bar.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Our next question from Cyber Risk. What were your initial thoughts on the macro accusation?
I just totally laughed it off. I didn't really think much of it. And then I didn't think it was gonna get as big as it did. Some people screenshotted it and went onto the internet, and once it goes online, it just blows up. So I think it's really funny, and in fact, now it's just a running joke. Every time we play and we do something, which it's because of macros, and so. It's a running joke. I would like to say though that the guy that accused me of it, I think he saw the stuff online and he got a lot of crap for it. So he apologized, and he seems like an okay guy, and he tries to talk to me. So don't be too hard on him, I guess.
Yeah,
Man.
well, he's actually for other reasons he's actually banned off the Alpha 3 Discord at the moment. So he's also known for doing that sort of thing. So within our like online Alpha 3 sort of community, we weren't surprised that he would go around accusing people of stuff like that.
When you think about it, those old school Shoto players like you and Valle, like just like how deep those dragon punches are. Like you'll be almost home. You'll almost be there. Like, yeah, I got this jump in. I got him. Nope. Because that coming from the grave, it's so deep. Yeah. You're like, oh, he's got to be cheating. I felt that way too many.
I don't know. I actually thought it was kind of interesting because if I were to accuse someone of macros, it would be like if they did some crazy like 17-hit combo consistently online. That then I'll be like, okay. But like I'm thinking in my head, it's like it's two motions, right? It takes like a split second to do, and I don't know. For me, I guess I've done it for so long, I don't even think twice. So I just thought it was weird to call that out as macros rather than if I did like some super combos or something.
Cyber Risk has a second question. What do you like about Alpha 3 and Street Fighter 2 in contrast to each other?
I would say the one thing I really like about Alpha 3 is the neutral game. heavy emphasis on footsies, learning a lot of the priorities, which is very kind of reminiscent of Street Fighter 2. A lot of focus on just like the neutral game. Obviously, when you activate custom, all of that goes out the window, but I think, that's a very fun aspect for me. Way superior over Alpha 2, in fact. Alpha 2, the footsies are pretty minimal. They kept it very basic. So yeah, I think that's probably my favorite part about Alpha 3, the neutral game. It's kind of reflective of the Street Fighter 2 neutral game.
Yep. Jaja-san has a question. His question is, how does it feel to be a boomer gamer?
A boomer gamer?
Yeah, like an older gamer.
I guess I feel fortunate that I was able to kind of experience the scene from the explosion, and then all of the metamorphosis to the online scene, console, and still kind of, I'm not as active in the scene, but I'm still kind of in the background. So yeah, I'm fortunate to have kind of seen things from the get-go.
Yeah, I'm always like, now I'm old enough. I mean, I'm only a few years younger than John, but the new games come out, and I'll just be like, Murtaugh, from Lethal Weapon. I'm just like, I'm too old for this shit. And, and it's just like learning a whole new game from the ground up. It's so daunting. I don't even know how I did it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, I gotta just move it along.
Oh no! I was just thinking one quick thing. I think it was really maybe last year. I was hanging out with some people from the community after a tournament, and somebody said something, and I was like, "Oh, I got my quarter up, right?" Just say I got next or something. And one of the kids was like, "What does that mean?" And I realized, wow, you've never even played on an arcade machine, so it meant nothing to this guy. And so yeah, I just felt really old at that time. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yep. Our next question is from Hamster. Ask him if he still pretends to drink liquor when he's really drinking glasses of water.
Wow, who is this guy? This guy must have been hanging out from Keystone days. Yeah, there's a legendary story where I faked a shot, and I got caught red-handed, and so I got a lot of shit for it for many years. So this guy is on the inside know.
Yeah. He said to me in chat, 5K chat, you probably won't remember who he was, but he used to hang around you a lot. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I asked him, do you want to be credited for your actual name? He's like, nah, you probably won't remember me. Our next question is from Johnny Matrix. What is it like to still be the only double Evo champ? I think no one has broken that record.
No, I actually think Daigo won Guilty Gear and Super Turbo 1 year, and then I think I won CVS and ST, and then later on, Infiltration won Street Fighter 4, and then the Cross Tekken team tournament with Laugh. So I guess technically, yeah, Daigo, me, and Infiltration all have 2 titles at Evo.
Okay.
Oh, in 1 year. I think Fudo got one in Virtual Fighter, as well as has a Street Fighter one as well.
Oh, did he? Okay, all right. I didn't even realize that.
I'm not sure who won the only time that they had Virtual Fighter. I think it was Fudo, but I could be mistaken.
Yep.
Okay.
There have been online Alpha 3 and Alpha 2 tourneys run recently with a prize pot. Would you consider entering them?
I haven't really thought about entering online tournaments. Honestly, I was just kind of here to kill time from all the COVID activities, and it kind of surprised me that there's so many online tournaments. In fact, I think there's literally been 8 online tournaments in the last 6 days, right? Even though I know it's the Match Arena Cup. So I'm really glad that there's a explosion of activity, but at this moment, I don't really have any interest in joining.
Okay. You had a chance to versus Gizzle, who many consider to be the best Super Turbo player in Australia. How did he compare to the top North American players?
I would have to, play him a bit more. So I've only played in that one set, and unfortunately, Australia to here, the lag is not that great. So a little bit of skipping here and there. So I played just a boxer versus boxer match, and he seemed really good. But I wouldn't be able to have a full assessment until we actually were able to play for a longer set. Hopefully with better connection.
Let's be
Yeah.
honest here. A boxer versus boxer match, you never can tell who's actually better.
Well, possibly.
I joked around.
Yeah.
Stupid.
It's
yeah,
hard.
that's
It's like
usual
like the
pick.
Honda mirror as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually when people challenge me from outside of, I guess, Northern America, if I'm gonna try out the match, I usually just pick boxer because when there's lag, that's usually just the easiest person to just kind of go crazy with. So yeah, if hopefully I'll have a chance to play him with a better connection, and I'll use my standard shoulder characters.
Yep. Is there a player you would like to verse but you haven't had a chance to, or someone you'd like to play again that you haven't played in a while?
Someone that I would like to play again. I guess throughout the years, obviously I played Vibe, many times over lots of games. I think when we were in a prime, that was one of the most fondest memories I had. I know he's recently gone on Fight Kid and trying to play a bit, but he's also running events and he's playing a lot of the newer games as well. So I would say if we could maybe just go back in time or whatever it is, freeze time, and just get a few days to just kind of brush up on, and then just kind of battle out. I think that'll be, I find that really fun because for the exhibition in Vegas at Evo, both of us were out of practice. We just went there and we just kind of mashed things out, but it was still, truly enjoyable. So I would love to try to do that again if we could have the opportunity.
Okay. What did you think of the documentary Bang the Machine?
It was a great documentary, and initially when I first heard about the project, I was kind of questioning, wow, really, you're gonna film this scene? Is it gonna be any good? But when we finally saw the end result, I was like, wow, like they did a great job putting this together. It's very unfortunate that it's probably gonna never see the light of day for an official release due to basically 9/11 just destroying all of the original footage along with all the contracts and NDAs. But yeah, it's I feel fortunate that it was able to capture that moment in time and kind of show what the scene was like.
My last question for you is: what would Street Fighter 6 have to have for you to get into it?
I mean, it's just gotta be fun to play, and my whole issue with Street Fighter 5 was that I felt like everything was kind of whittled down to 50-50 in my opinion. And then I also didn't like the fact that it seemed like all the characters, there seems to be just one optimal way to play. If you look at a lot of the top players using different characters, typically in the older other Street Fighter games, you could tell who's playing who, right? Because everybody had a slightly different style. But I feel like in Street Fighter 5, you didn't really get to showcase that style very much. It felt like everyone kind of plays the same. So if Street Fighter 6 was able to kind of, I do understand why they want to try to make it simpler to bring make it more accessible to the masses, but I think there should be a fine balance where you still have creativity and allow you to have a different style and have that be effective. So hopefully they're able to kind of go back to a little more grassroots to be able to differentiate the game more through your characters and just your play style.
I always call that stock car fighter. Like they seem to balance the game by like pretty much giving most characters very similar tool sets. Especially outside of V-Trigger, it seems that every character has very similar tool sets.
Yeah, and I think part of that was by design, right? They wanted to make it more accessible because Street Fighter 4, they definitely loosened up a lot of the tactics and made it easier to execute and really brought big explosion to the scene, which was great. So I think they were kind of leaning towards that with 5, but I feel like maybe they went a little bit too far, made it a little bit too simple. So hopefully maybe 6 they could dial that back down a little bit.
Yep. Renegade, do you have any questions for him?
Yeah, I mean, tons. I could probably talk all the time.
Yeah.
But
Well,
but
related to the retro. Yeah.
I guess if you wanted one of the retro games that you are famous for playing, if you wanted one of them back on the tournament scene or tournament circuit for good, which one would you pick?
I would say historically my favorite fighters have been Alpha 2, Hyper Fighting, and ST. I would say after playing those retro fighters for a bit, I would say I'm leaning towards Alpha 2 simply because one, it's pretty easy to pick up for a lot of players, right? And it is still fast paced. I still have a lot of fun playing it. So I think Alpha 2 is a very good balance of, the newer school kind of fast custom tactics, but you're able to pick it up really quick and still stick to the basics. So yeah, I would say Alpha 2.
Yeah, Capcom Cup Alpha 2. You heard it here first. Yeah, and I guess my other one was that I don't. Did you ever travel over to the East Coast tournaments back in the heyday? I don't remember that if you had or not.
My very first experience over in East Coast, I believe, was B2, which is Boston Brawl, which actually came after B3. So that was a tournament held at MIT. I think that was my first experience. And then I think after that, what might have been ECC 3 or ECC 4. I can't quite remember. I think that was probably my second. And then after that, we started going to a lot of the Midwest tournaments at Chicago at Super Just Games and so forth. But I think B2 was my first experience.
I guess from that, and there was a huge East Coast West Coast rivalry right at the dawn of SRK when they started going to more national tournaments and stuff like that. Did you ever have who would you consider your East Coast rival? Like, who are you most concerned about in the bracket?
I guess at that time, Eddie Lee and Arturo Raisaben, they were, probably the top two stars coming out of the East Coast, and they were probably all around the strongest players there. So I would say those were probably the two players that was on top of my mind. And then I think obviously later on when Justin came onto the scene, he was the man to beat. So, but yeah, I think for the first, several years of the rivalry, I think probably Eddie Lee was probably it.
Oh man, Eddie Lee was so great, and he's always known, like, he would pick funky characters, and do amazing with them. So he was always very unpredictable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that was his strength, right? That and I think his defensive style is what kind of rubbed off on Justin, being able to just really play really defensively and just annoy the hell out of you. That was they're really really good at that.
Yeah. So that's it for me, I think. I mean, I don't want to keep the guy here too long. It's late.
Thanks for joining us for the podcast, John.
Not a problem. Thank you for the opportunity. It was good reminiscing about all the old days. Very good times.
Oh, I do. One other one is like, is the moss fixed yet?
Yes. It's actually like 2 feet away from me now. Yeah. So when I first got on Fightcade, it just would not work. So I was stuck using this old Hori stick. So I was playing charge characters for about a month. But yeah, now my stick has been revamped once again. New PCB buttons. Joystick's been lubricated. So the last time it got this upgrade was probably like a decade ago. So I think about every 10 years is the pattern that I redo my stick. So yeah, it's still kicking, and I think this is the original Moss casing. So what? It's more than 25 years old, maybe even 30 at this point. So yeah, it's still ticking.
Wow.
Yeah, those things.
So that's a secret to keeping it along all this time. You actually maintained it, like the way you'd maintain your body with working out. Like,
I don't even remember. I don't have the first stick I had was the Dreamcast, not the Agitech, but the ASCII, the CBS ASCII stick. It was like a digital one. It was kind of a weird little stick, but I love that thing. So it was always very different to adjust from the US sticks either P360s or HAP to Japanese sticks, and some people never made the switch.
Yeah, and that's me right there. Right, I'm still stuck in the old days.
Thanks for listening to the Alpha Lives podcast. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you like the footage in this video, check out Version's channel in the description. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a brand new episode. We'll see you then.